In this lecture, we're going to talk about breaking the rules in the right way, because I know everybody wants to break the rules. It's really how you end up becoming or creating your own signature as an artist. You have to learn the rules. You have to master the rules. Every artist in the history of human art has done this. You can see drawings from famous artists when they first started out, where they were learning to master the rules, and they followed the rules to be able to pick them up and get good at them. And then once you have those worked out and you know how to apply and use them, that's when you really start breaking them in ways that you know how to break them. My husband and I were watching a film, and I was like, that artist is really trying to break the rules, but he hasn't mastered them yet. And so as a result, it's a mess. I appreciate what he's trying to do, but it doesn't work because he hadn't first learned the rules of cinematography before he started doing all these different things. So one of the things I want you guys to keep in mind is that when you break the rules, there's still rules for how you break them. Okay. So we're going to cover that. So you can start figuring out your style and experimenting and figure out who you are as an artist using photography. Okay, so breaking the rules the right way. Number one, rule of thirds. You absolutely want to learn this. The rule of thirds is really great for new photographers to start thinking beyond simple stand up, take a picture. You want to start placing your objects on those thirds lines, right? So if you look at the composition, you want to break your composition into thirds and start using those thirds for locating your objects. Eventually, though, once you get past this, you don't want to just follow it. You want to start looking for interesting shapes. You want to start trying to figure out how ways you can create things to balance your composition and then maybe even unbalance it, So these are the kinds of things that an experienced photographer means when they say that they're working the shot. Right? So almost nobody shows up to a scene and says, I know exactly what I'm going to do. They have an idea, but they don't show up, say, I know what I'm going to do, take a picture and leave, right? The rule of thirds just simply is not always the answer. So here's an example of the subject being in the middle of the composition. The rule of thirds would say, okay, we want to put him, here's roughly, whoops. Okay, that's weird. For some reason, my mouse is possessed. So that's not third. This is third point, right? So if I cut the first third, if we put him here, what does that change? If we put him over here, what does that change? But no, right now his head is dead center in the middle of the composition. If you draw an X this way and an X this way, his head's right there in the middle. Well, what it does in this case is it forces everything into a radial composition. Everything, right? This big bright blue is leading your eye to this dark image in the middle of a dark space. And that is how you do that, right? So I'm not saying this is a great photo. I'm just saying what works here is that despite everything bright going on, your eye ends up coming into the middle. And that actually makes the story in this photo compelling, because I look at this and I see an immigrant family, and the flag here is a bit of a, helping to tell the story. This is either their son, or maybe he's someone they met along the way who helped them. Who knows, right? But everything in here leads to the fact that there's this exchange going on, and it's a compelling story. Unfortunately, the photograph is out of focus. The color is really bad in this bright yellow. I would desaturate that in my shot. I would turn this whole thing into the red, white, and blue kind of thing to play off the coming to America concept. Right. Again, we've got the point here where the tracks mysteriously disappear right in the middle of the page. If you had shifted, say this is your center for your tunnel, if you had shifted this to over here, it might not have worked as well. And so you just take up your hand and hold your hand and just cut off the right side of the composition. And it feels unbalanced because this is heavy. This is dark. This is very heavy. And by having this bright yellow, I'm trying to figure out if that's, okay, I thought maybe at first it was a person. That would be even cooler, right? My brain starts being really creative and start thinking, ooh, I could like photograph in Freddy Krueger or Jason or some maniac in the tunnel and make it a really cool photo, or a ghost or something. I think it's just a sign. But that yellow sign right there in the middle of the composition, breaking the rule of thirds, actually provides nice balance to the patterns that the shadows and the wires and the structure and the tracks are creating here. Okay, so what I would suggest is, if you're unsure, take this shot, take a step to the right, so that you're cutting off part of this. Take that, take a step to the left, you're cutting off part of this. Take that, then evaluate them. Also, this person's standing up. What happens if you get closer to the ground? I think this would have been an even cooler shot if they had gotten down really low and looked up. But, you got to try, you got to experiment and see what happens. Now, this is out of focus, but this is a really great example of breaking the rule of thirds. The thirds here, the thirds line, or the thirds points are roughly here, but we've moved the duck's eye off that line. The eye is just barely on the composition. And what it does is, when you set up a shot like this, he's clearly entering the scene and something is about to happen. You've given him enough space over here that he can move into the scene and we can set this up for something happening. Okay. Rule 2, never put your subject in the middle. And we kind of really just talked about it a little bit with the rule of thirds, right? So you want to break this. I'm not saying you have to break it. What I'm saying is, don't automatically go into every shot saying, well, I can't put anything in the middle. I just showed you 2 examples of where we put things in the middle and it worked. And here are some more. This works because of balance. It doesn't work if you shift this any other way. The patterns, the people, the figures, they're all balanced in this, so that putting him right in the middle is the only thing that works. That's a great shot. Symmetry requires that the statue in the building be in the middle. In order for this to be a symmetrical composition, your subject has to go in the middle. And it's symmetrical just by the fact that the architecture in the plaza is symmetrical. These are 2 bridges, right? You've put this in the middle because, once again, we have the right half and the left half of the composition are identical. So we've created this symmetry, which creates this abstraction based on these bridges. So we have to end up putting the center of that right down the middle. Okay. Rule number 3, don't place the horizon in the middle of the frame. And it's a general landscape rule that's sort of on the version of number 2, but there are plenty of times that we want to do this. And sometimes it's the right thing to do. For instance, because the Taj Mahal's reflection in the water is so beautiful in this picture, we want to see it. But we also have symmetry going on this way, but the reflection creates symmetry also this way. So not only vertically is this half and this half the same, but horizontally this half and this half are the same for the most part. Obviously you've got the fountain, but you create that double sense of symmetry. So in this case, your horizon needs to be in the center of your shot in order to capture that beautiful reflection. Here again, the horizon is right in the middle of the image, and normally you don't do that. But it works here because we are balancing out this big sky here with this big heavy bridge here. And that's how you balance this open sky here with this here, but also we want to see the full structure of the bridge because the subject in this is clearly the bridge. And putting the horizon works in the middle as a result. Also here, with the reflection, we are okay with the horizon being in the middle. You can adjust it. That would be a different photo. You could move it up, you can move it down. But here it's beautiful. It's a beautiful photo where the horizon being in the middle is it works, and it's not a no-no. So you can break that rule. Fill the frame. Okay, so this is always something you're told. Fill the frame, get close to your subject. I am going to say that to you all when you get into portrait photography, get closer to your subject. Okay, you're going to need to get closer to your subject until you master that. And then we're going to talk about how you can necessarily not. So let's look at these two images. The one on the left does not fill the whole frame. The one on the right fills the frame. The problem with the one on the right is balance. Her dress shirt is so dark that in that closer frame, it does not work. It's heavy, it's stifling. All you see is that big black part of her dress. The one on the left, you've now got the negative space here to balance. This white negative space balances the big heaviness of her dress. And this ends up being the much better shot. Both of these are good. You can, if you take this shot, you can always later crop it. Keep that in mind. You can always crop your shots. So say we took this and this shot, and she wanted to be able to crop it to multiple formats. You can do that with the high resolution that we're shooting at now. You can do that better if you take this wider shot and then later crop it to multiple size. If you had only taken and filled the frame in this shot and then she needed another format and you can't crop it because it doesn't fit the format, then it's a problem. So go ahead and take some wider shots, move out a little bit. Same here, right? We can crop this photo of this boy where we want it to in multiple formats by stepping back a little bit and shooting back. Often when I'm telling you guys get closer, you're not even this close. You're still too many feet back, okay? So I want you to get this close, this overall frame, and then from there you can always crop as you need to. Okay, I'm going to stop here and continue in the next video.